All right, thank you. So like I said, my name is Major Smith. I am the Chief of Comptroll Author Assignments down here at AFPC, and today I'm going to talk to you, just give you the spread the word brief and a Comptroller Officer Assignment update. Today what we're going to be going over is our manning, our assignments, and our development. And at any point you have questions on anything, just stop and we'll discuss them. You don't have to wait to the end. So this chart is as of the end of July. As you can see that for our lieutenants, we're overmanned in our lieutenants. We have more lieutenants than we have authorizations. So when our lieutenants come to us and they ask if they can cross-flow into other career fields, we generally will look at something like this and see if we can allow them to go and do something else. Other highlight on this is you can see that our lieutenant colonels were under our authorizations. So what that does for everyone below lieutenant colonel is that they are given leadership opportunities at an earlier date than they normally would have. So our majors are now filling lieutenant colonel billets, our captains are filling those major billets, and sometimes we allow lieutenants to fill captain billets. So although this shows that we're overmanned overall, the other slides will show you why it's difficult for us to allow officers to go and do other things outside of our career fields. This is our inventory and our sustainment line. You can see in the bottom it's the year group specific to the year that the officer was commissioned. The gray background in here is our authorizations. The blue line on there is our permanent party, so those are officers that are either working in a base level comptroller squadron, a MAGCOM staff, or a acquisition program office. That red line through there is what the Air Force A1 at that time said that we need to maintain a healthy career field throughout to build those future General Martins and General Browns that we have. So you can see that in our year groups, we've got a lot of overages in either 2001 to the 2004 year group. We've got too many officers, more officers than our sustainment line allows. We also are short our lieutenants, so we haven't assessed the amount of lieutenants that were authorized. Obviously the 2013 year just finished, so I suspect that those lines will be going up. Within those, the 2000 to 2003 year group, we also have a significant amount of prior enlisted officers. So what that means is we have a lot of officers that are becoming retirement eligible. And when the Air Force is doing all this force shaping stuff, we hope that they're looking at those officers that can retire and they don't cut us too severely when we get our actual numbers for going to be the RIF boards and all of those boards that are happening. So in the perfect storm, we could have all those officers retire, the Air Force could cut us even more, and we would be hurting overall. So the big takeaways on those couple slides is that we review every request to cross-flow into something else, and that means recoring yourself completely and going to a different career field. It's a case-by-case, and we try to do what's best for the officer and what's best for the Air Force, but sometimes we just can't let them go and do other things. You do have an opportunity as a lieutenant or even a captain to go and do something within the maintenance career field. There's speed programs that you can apply for, and you can go into logistics or an intel crossflow, and I'll talk about those later on. Also, for all those CGOs out there, you're going to be given opportunities at a lower rank to lead flights now you're going to be given opportunity now that you weren't given in the past. So be looking for those leadership opportunities when you're coming up on your VML cycles. Assignments. This is what Captain Cook and I do every single day here, and what we need every officer to understand is when we match assignments, we look at what the Air Force needs are. That always comes first. So we look at what's submitted, what the needs of the Air Force are. We review every single officer's ADP that they submit during the cycle that you're on. We read them and we look at what you've done in the past and what you say you want to do in your ADP, and we try to place you in those jobs that will make those dreams of yours come true. So if you say in your ADP you want to be a squadron commander, there's certain jobs that our DT and our wing commanders out there value. So if that's what you want to do, we try to make those work for you. Our development team also tells us how we're going to assign officers, and I'll go into that in the next slide. But so we should take those functional priorities into play as well. And on purpose, very last, we take the member's preference. When you are identified to go on a VML, there's a DCO that Captain Cook and I have, and we identify what jobs we think realistically we are going to fill. So what we ask you to do is listen to those DCOs and see what jobs are out on AMS and make realistic choices for yourself. Not everyone can go to LA, not everyone can go to Germany, but so when you're looking at those things, look at what actually is in the realm of possible and see what's best for you personally. Just a quick time on station requirements. All assignments are 48 months for field grade officers or captains. We in FM move our officers at 36 months, so we do get a waiver to move all of our officers at the 36-month mark. Lieutenants are allowed to move. We move you every we move you 36 months. CONUS to CONUS. For commanders, we can, if you've been on station for 24 months and you're a captain or a field grade officer, if you want to go overseas, you can move at the 24-month mark, or if you're a lieutenant and you say, you want to go to Al Udeid or Kunsan, you can move at the 12-month mark. We don't identify those on our VMLs when we do them, or our vulnerable move list, but we do, if you've been there for 12 months and you say, I'd really like to go do something else, give us a call and we can see if we can utilize you. A change that's going to be happening for all those mill-to-mill couples out there right now. Our AFI states that you can move at 12 months if, say, your husband gets an assignment and you're somewhere else. If you want to join him, you can move at 12 months. The AFI is going to be changing to 24 months. So for all our sessions that are coming in and we assign you one place and you get married, if your spouse is at another location, it could be a couple years before you get joint spouse. And all of our command tours are 24 months. Sometimes we ask our officers to stay 3 years, but that's a rare exception that we allow those to happen. It's just a timeline of a bunch of dates out there for the assignment cycles. If what's big for the officers out there, if you see what month you signed into your new location, you can guess what VML cycle you're going to be on. So if you came in the summer, you can move in the summer. If we allow case-by-case officers to slip to different cycles. For instance, if you're in the spring cycle and something works better for you to move in the summer, we'll take those into consideration and all. But this is just for all of you out there. This is the timelines that we're working under right now. So right now, Captain Cook and I are in the middle of the summer cycle, which is our biggest cycle to move officers. Our development team, which is chaired by Ms. Thomas and General Martin, tell us how we're going to fill our assignments. So you can see that commanders are a critical must fill, so they all have to be filled. Our budget and finance chiefs are our chief of FMA and our chief of financial services office. Those are #1 fill. Anyone on air staff, our MAGCOM FMAO, so the guys that are in charge of operations on the MAGCOM staff. Our joint positions, and our joint position is defined if there's a code assigned to it that's actually going to give you joint credit. There's a lot of joint organizations, but they're not necessarily joint positions. Our remote assignments, such as an OSAN or a Kunsan or Al Udeid, and then the Air Force Cost Agency, which is also part of air staff. Our next down fill is our MAGCOM staff. So we try to fill those at 85%. That's our priority 2 fills. So we try not to we try to keep them at 85%. If we can give them more, if there's officers that have the right skill set to go to MAGCOM, we will sometimes man them over 85%. And the last one, which is maybe changing in the upcoming DT, is our priority 3 fills. And those are the ones we rarely get to be quite honest with you. We simply usually don't have enough officers to go around for these kinds of jobs, but it's our acquisition jobs and so those jobs that are doing cost or budget at LA, Wright Pat, Hanscom, or Eglins, those are all priority 3 fills. And what fill to entitlement means that if we look at an analysis and we see that Wright Pat is manned at 75%, we try to make sure that the other program offices, the other big bases, which we consider again are LA, Hanscom, and Eglin, we try to make them sure that they're all equal. So they're all filling the herd, I guess, the same. And our deputy position, so the deputy chief of FMA and the deputy financial services officer, those are priority 3 fills. And they're very difficult for us to get to simply because lately we've been getting a lot of institutions requirements. So that means that we have to send officers to go teach OTS, ROTC, ACSC, so or the Air Command and Staff College. So if they have to go and teach outside of our career field, it's a career broadening, and they're doing something else other than FM, those take away from our opportunities to send officers to those priority 3 fills. We brief this every time we do a DCO with our people that are on the vulnerable move list. What we ask is you to be upfront with us. If you've got a special case or there's something that's going on in your life that really would help you out to go to a certain location, tell us so we can try to make that work. Look at the development model that we have out there and out on the MyPurse website, and when you're filling out your comments, make sure you define your career and individual, like what you want to do in 5 to 10 years, and make sure that your commander is doing the same kind of stuff. When you're filling out your ADP, talk to peers. You can even call us and talk to us about what you want to be when you grow up, and we can help you formulate that ADP. Don't target a single location or job. Not everyone can be stationed in Florida or Hawaii. If you want to be a squadron commander one day, one of the positions that our development team values is the chief of FMA. So sometimes, someone has to go to Minot. Someone has to go to those locations that aren't necessarily the glamour places in the Air Force. So if ultimately you've got a goal, make sure that you're targeting a job, but not a single location. Don't repeat stuff in your SURF. Captain Cook and I can see your records and we can see your SURF. I know what you did in the past, so you don't need to repeat it. And also, we talk to many people throughout the day, so don't assume that we remember every single one of you. Then we talk to you. We try to make notes on you, and we try to do really well to remember when we spoke, but sometimes we just don't remember our conversation. So remind us that we talked on whatever date and what we said to you, and that'll help us when we're doing our actual matching. Development. So this picture right here is our financial management development team. It's chaired, like I said, by Ms. Thomas and General Martin. And in there, all of those are colonels that are all the MAGCOM FMs, and some of our co-coms are there. During the DT that meets during the summer, what they provide to us is they provide any kind of oversight or shaping and policy for us. What they do specifically for the military is they select officers to go to intermediate development education or senior development education, so Air Command and Staff College for those majors and Air War College for our lieutenant colonels. They also, during the DT, they select civilians to go to their civilian development education at the same time. They also select squadron command candidates, so they will score everyone and they'll pick those officers to go on the candidate list. They meet once a year down here at AFPC. Career broadening. There'll be a call coming out soon to the officers with a special experience exchange duty. So typically what we hear when we talk about the speed guide is for officers that want to go to AFIT and get their cost degree. But also in here, you can apply to go and do an intel or a maintenance career broadening program, or you can do all of those. You can go education with industry, which is you go and work with the USAA for a year, or you go work with one of our civilian companies. You learn how they do business and you try to bring back their business practices and see how you can help it with the Air Force. Typically, we only get people to apply for the EWI or for the AFIT degree, but you can, officers, it's open to the 65F career field to apply for those other programs. So we encourage officers to look at those and see if that's something that you'd like to do. The big thing that we are pushing is acquisition excellence. And General Brown, who is the AFMC comptroller, is trying to develop a career model that better defines what we expect from our acquisition officers. So in that, this last year, we had a big push to send officers to our master's degree. We will have the same push coming out again. So if people are interested in going to move PCSing to Right Pat and going and getting their cost analysis degree, we encourage you to submit that. We have one PhD program slot, and the great thing about that is You get to go to a civilian institution of your picking as long as you can finish your PhD in 3 years, and then you'll have a follow-on either to the Pentagon or down at Maxwell teaching at our DFMCS school. The time on station requirement, if you're not at Wright Pat, it is 2 years by the time of the start of the program. So 1 year by the date of applications are due a year before, and so if you were interested in attending next year for 2015, it'd be 1 year this summer. If you're at Wright Pat, there's no time on station requirement because we would just move you from whatever organization you're at over to school. This is how our DT defines a weld road to success. If you talk to 6 different colonels, you will get 6 different ways on how they made colonel. So the big thing that you need to know is that job performance and leadership and where you're at. No matter if you're in acquisitions or you're in an O&M organization or if you're on a MAGCOM staff, it doesn't really matter where you are, it matters what you're doing while you're there. So make sure that you're doing the best that you can in where you're at. I had an old mentor, and I'm sure you've heard it before, but he told me that grow where you're planted, so do the best that you can where you're at. We expect that when you go, we send you to an acquisition billet and you're working in an acquisition program office to get the appropriate level of the APDP certification. With the big push, if you want to go back to acquisitions when you're later in your career, you have to have certain levels. So make sure that you're doing the certifications that you can. And I know that we have rolled out the new certification for the O&M guys, and make sure you're doing that as well. Short tours, it's not necessary, but the things that you can learn on a short tour in such a short period of time are amazing. So make sure if you want to go on a short tour, call us and we'll see what we can do for you. Make sure if you have not started your master's degree, start it and finish it because it's important. When you go to meet a DT for the development team, for any reason, they're looking to see, do you have your master's degree done? And the next bullet, do you have your PME done? If you don't, what you signal to the board is that you're not all in and you don't want those opportunities. So make sure you have to make the DT tell you no, don't give them a reason to say no. The expectation is that school selects will complete the non-residence course until the Air Force changes kind of how they're viewing that. Our development team expects you to do it. And then make sure your records are accurate. No one cares about your career more than you, so make sure that you're reviewing what's out there, and if an OPR is missing, make sure you get that into the system. If your duty title is not correct, all of those things on your CERF are vital, so make sure that they're accurate. If you have questions on who you need to go for your CERF stuff specifically to get it updated, give us a call. We can help you with that. So the bottom line, the tag is control what you control. So give the DT or the promotion board a reason to tell you no by doing everything else that you're supposed to do. CGO development. Like I said previously, our development team and the wing commanders out there that are hiring authorities for our squadron commanders, they value that chief of FMA, not only the knowledge that you learn, but the leadership that you get there. There are limited chief of FMA billets in the Air Force. Worldwide, there's 25 of them, and we have a lot. We have, at least for captains, we have 200 captains vying for that position. So if, like I said, if Minot's open, and that's what your ultimate goal is to be a squadron commander, seek those opportunities and not locations. What you're learning now as a CGO will help what you're doing later on. It used to be 8 years commission time in service to be in the zone for major. You know, they slipped the 05-year group 1 year, so it's fluctuating to about 9 years now. So that being said is you have 2 to 3 assignments prior to your major board. So what you're doing now and what you're learning now will help you later on. So if you're not doing all of the different, if you're not getting kind of a breadth of acquisitions and O&M, it may be hard to place you later on as you become more senior in rank. We do limit our career broadening opportunities, but lately we've been given so many institutional requirements that we have to allow officers to go and teach those ROTC or SOS courses. Development and timing are very important. So when we're going and we're allowing officers to do that, we will sit down and map out probably the next 20 years and kind of see where you're at and see if it makes sense to you at that time. And although it appears we have more lieutenants than we need, we can't afford to allow more than what our taxes, and the taxes are institutional requirements. So if career broadening is something you want to do, again, contact us and we can talk to you about it. This is the squadron command. So our development team, like I said earlier, is the one that picks our squadron commanders. All eligible FM officers will compete. So just because you say you don't want to compete, we are all in this career field. We command early and we command often, so we need every officer to do that. So it's going to be in the rank that we look at is major selects through lieutenant colonel. How we determine who those officers are is we will look on 15 months time on station by the year that you would take command. So if for the board this year, they will look at officers that are going to have 15 months time on station by 1 January of next year. If you have a DEROS during the summer months, or you're in a must-move status. So a must-move status is if you're coming out of school, or you're coming out of a billet that it's like a joint billet with a 36-month tour. You're in a must-move status, and you automatically compete. Speaking about joint, in order to receive joint credit, the slide says 34, but it's actually 36 months to get credit for the joint position, and if you are selected for command, we can be waived to 22 months. Officers that are not eligible to compete is if you have an open UIF or you've been passed over for promotion, or if you're in the zone to colonel during that calendar year. The DT selects the candidates, and that list comes out. There's a memo that comes out from AFPC announcing all of the candidates, and from there our MAJCOM FMs bid the candidates to the wing commander. So after the DT meets and after the candidate list is established, we kind of have what we consider like an NFL draft. We get on the line with all the MAJCOM FMs, and they pick their number one person, and then they go and they bid those wing commanders. Again, the wing commanders are the hiring authorities for their comptroller squadron commanders. There's a perception out there that our acquisition officers don't fare as well either on our candidate list for squadron command. And so what Captain Cook and I did is we reviewed the last 3 squadron command boards. And as you can see that there's not a big difference. Our acquisition officers are scoring very, very close to our O&M experienced officers. And a lot of the officers that have acquisition in their background are being selected for command. So if you feel like if you're sitting in a program office and you have no chance to be a squadron commander and your career is over because you sat in acquisition, that's simply not the case. You will be given an opportunity just like anyone else in our career fields. So intermediate development education and senior development education, these are our Air Command and Staff College down at Maxwell, our Air War College. It's the next level of PME for our officers. On a promotion board, the top 20% of the captains selected for major are considered IDE selects. And on the promotion board for lieutenant colonel, the top 15 majors selected for lieutenant colonel are SCE selects. So what that means to all of you out there is that the Air Force at some point in one of the looks for those different groups, the Air Force has to send them to school. So those are the top people from the promotion board. Just because you're select doesn't mean you necessarily get scored by the DT. Kind of the ticket to the show is your senior rater who you work for will push your form to AFPC and push it to the DT to be scored. For IDE, for those Air and Command Staff College, you have 3 looks to, once you become eligible, and for SCE it's 4 looks. What happens is so your 3849, your form is pushed to the DT. The DT recommends the nominees to the Air Force, the board that meets, and we recommend where you should go, and then the board will either take a recommendation or not take a recommendation. a big shift this year was we were told how many IDE selects, so those officers again that are on the top 20% of the promotion board, how many of them we had to send. So when we were given our quota to send officers, we were given 8 people that we could send, and 7 of them had to be selects. So it was a very tough competition for those candidates to go to school. If you have gone to AFIT and you've got a cost master's degree or cost analyst degree, you can receive in residence credit, and it looks the same to the board. And so for IDE, if you want to get credit for that, you have to have a master's degree from AFIT. For the SDE and residence credit, in order to receive that, you have to have a PhD from an AFIT-sponsored school, and you have to score above the cut line. So just because you have a PhD and you've fixed that part of it, you still have to score high enough to be considered. So this is a battle space that we are working in right now. We look at the mission, and the policy dictates how we fill assignments. Our manning constraints obviously has a lot to do with that as well, and what our units are telling us they need. For those future squadron commanders out there, just because we have an officer on the vulnerable move list doesn't mean we know that you need a replacement. So if you need a replacement, there's ways to submit a requirement to us. We also look at the development of our officers and what the DT, how they vector those officers. What's important for you out there is to keep your ADP current at all times. If there's a hard to fill job, we do go and look and see for officers that maybe have volunteered in the past to go to Kunsan and see if maybe they're still interested in that. Again, make sure you're doing your PME and you're getting your advanced academic degree. We've actually come down to, when we were placing lieutenants on assignment last cycle, that if they had their master's degree, we place them in a higher priority to fill because they're doing what they need to do above their peers. Make sure you're staying informed at all times, and unlike other assignment teams, you can call or email us anytime. We're always available to you, so if you have questions, concerns, we do welcome talking to you. We love talking to all of you out there, and we'll answer any questions that we know how to answer. Obviously, the big thing is performance. Make sure you're doing the best that you can in what you're doing now, and the next job will take care of itself. I feel like I'm a broken record on the advanced academic degree on your PME, so just know that you need to do that. If you're interested in going into any of those speed programs, going into maintenance, career broadening kind of things, talk with your leadership and make sure your records are up to date. We see a lot of really bad duty titles, so I may know what a budget officer is, but the promotion board or the DT doesn't value that kind of general term. So make sure that you're doing exactly what the scope of what you're doing. We do have a comptroller officer assignment Facebook page. So if you're not Facebook friends with us, please request us. We do post things out there. And again, that's Captain Cook and my contact information down at the bottom. So I think that